We just got some major bombshell leaks for the iPhone 14 Pro, which include both good and bad news, but I think the good news is so good that the bad news isn't even gonna matter at this point. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into the bad news about the iPhone 14 Pro first, and then I'll get into the crazy leaks about the new camera system and why it's gonna be the biggest camera update we've ever had. You've probably been seeing these leaked renders floating around the internet over the past week or so, showing off a new iPhone design that features the dual hole punch camera cutout on the front display, which I think is extremely exciting, and I personally think it's gonna look amazing in person. But when you go over to the back side, the camera bump looks almost identical to the one we already have on the iPhone 13 Pro. So when I first saw these renders, I thought they were fake, but we just got some confirmation from the most important source in regards to the iPhone 14 design. Yes, that's Jon Prosser, because back in September, right before the iPhone 13 design reveal, he decided to leak the iPhone 14 design, which he said would have a completely flush glass back as well as a single hole punch camera on the front. And obviously that was very exciting because that design would be completely unique since it would get rid of the squarish camera bump on the back that we currently have. But to be honest, right from the start, I had my doubts about this design. And the reason for that is because we've had some very specific camera leaks from Ming-Chi Kuo claiming that the iPhone 14 Pro would come with a 48 megapixel camera capable of shooting 8K video. So to me, it seemed absolutely impossible for Apple to somehow pull off completely flush cameras on the back of the new iPhone design. So because of that, I worked with Renders by Shailesh to create some iPhone 14 Pro renders based on Jon Prosser's renders created by Ian Zelbo, but with my own predictions added to it. And the main difference I added was having the flush glass back, but actually protruding the three main camera bumps further out from the frame. Because to me, there's no way they could have flush camera design if they're upgrading to a new 48 megapixel camera. So it's gonna have to stick out. And with that said, guess what just happened the other day? Jon Prosser himself made a new video admitting that his flush iPhone 14 Pro design might actually be for the iPhone 15 instead. So it's very likely that his leaks were just very early. And he even said that these recent leaked renders are probably the actual new iPhone 14 Pro design. So basically, we now have various sources agreeing that the rear squarish camera bump design will likely be sticking around for another year. And that right there is the bad news, because we've all been hyped up for a complete iPhone redesign, but it looks like we're only getting a partial redesign this time with the removal of the notch on the display. But don't worry, because like I said in the intro, I believe that the good news that was just leaked far outweighs the bad news, so let's get right into it. Way back in April of 2021, almost a full year ago, Ming-Chi Kuo reported that the new high-end 2022 iPhone 14 Pro models would come with a 48 megapixel camera that is capable of shooting 8K video. And making it even better, he said that the new camera would be capable of supporting both 48 megapixel output while simultaneously outputting 12 megapixel photos by utilizing pixel binning to essentially merge 4 nearby pixels into one larger pixel, which significantly increases the pixel size up to about 2.5 microns, which is larger than any Android phone out there. So Ming-Chi Kuo's predictions back in April of last year were that this new 48 megapixel sensor would elevate mobile phone camera photography to a new level, and I completely agree. But now, almost a full year later, we've gotten multiple reports that back up what Ming has been saying all along, including a report from TrendForce claiming that the 48 megapixel camera is coming to the iPhone 14 Pro models. And just the other day, Ming-Chi Kuo tweeted in agreement about the new leaked iPhone 14 Pro schematics, claiming that the new larger and more prominent rear camera of the 14 Pro models is due to Apple upgrading the wide camera to 48 megapixels. And then to put the cherry on top, we just got a bombshell leak from a Weibo account detailing the actual specs and features of the iPhone 14 Pro's new 48 megapixel camera. And as you can see, there are a bunch of confusing bits of info with no explanation, but luckily we here at MaxTech used to actually review cameras and compare them, and we used to shoot weddings full time, so we know a thing or two about cameras. So let's go ahead and dig into each little detail, starting with the 1/1.3 inches, which is actually the sensor size, which is going to be similar to the one to the S22 Ultra, around 69.12 millimeters squared. And if you want to compare that to the current iPhone 13 Pro Max's main camera sensor, it's actually going to be 57% larger than the current one, which is a huge difference. Now moving on to the next detail, we have 1.22 UM DPAF. And DPAF means dual pixel autofocus, which is currently the standard. Now 1.22 UM stands for 1.22 microns, which is a measure of the size of each individual pixel. And on the surface, it looks like a downgrade compared to the pixel size of the current iPhone 13 Pro, which is sitting at 1.9 microns. But before you think this is really bad news, the reason for the smaller pixel size is because there are now 4 times as many pixels inside of the sensor, since we're going from a 12 megapixel sensor to a 48 megapixel. So the pixels themselves have to get smaller. And the pixel size directly impacts how much light enters into each pixel, so a smaller 1.22 micron pixel size means less light entering the pixel, which means worse low light performance because Apple's gonna have to raise the ISO or the artificial exposure to properly adjust the brightness for a dim or low light scenario. But wait a minute, since Apple is gonna be utilizing pixel binning to merge 4 pixels together into one, thus outputting a 12 megapixel photo from that 48 megapixel sensor, the effective pixel size actually gets doubled from 1.22 microns up to 2.44 microns, which is almost exactly what Ming-Chi Kuo reported last year in April. And this new 2.44 micron pixel size is going to be a huge deal because it's actually going to let 28.4% more light come into the sensor compared to the iPhone 13 Pro sensor with 1.9 micron pixels, which is going to be a very big deal for low light photography and videography. But the main problem with all of this is that larger sensors, like the 57% larger one going into the iPhone 14 Pro, actually require longer and larger glass elements that protrude even more in order to maintain the same aperture. So if Apple were to maintain the same f1.5 aperture on this new, much larger sensor, the camera bump would have to stick out quite a bit more than it already is. And the crazy thing that backs that up is that Ming-Chi Kuo came out with a report saying that the diagonal length of the 48 megapixel camera will increase by 25 to 35%, while the height of the 7-layer lens will increase by 5 to 10%, which is why the new leaked renders are showing a much larger camera bump that protrudes even more than the current iPhone 13 Pro. Now with that out of the way, let's move on to the next detail in the list, dual 11/12-bit AD, which relates to the sensor shooting 11 or 12-bit colors and then converting it down to 8 or 10-bit that Apple uses. And right below that, the pixel level bonding and DRAM on the chip will be used for hardware level pixel binning of taking the 48 megapixel sensor and converting it into a 12 megapixel photo or video recording. And I do want to mention that when it's very bright outside, the camera will likely automatically use the full 48 megapixel sensor for maximum detail, but when it starts to get dim or even in dark low light, the camera will automatically switch to binning down to 12 megapixels to take advantage of the larger 2.44 micron pixel size when binning. Now moving on to the next detail, we have Clear HDR, which I believe stands for Apple's extended dynamic range video recording, which combines two different exposures to get better HDR results. And then DOL HDR stands for Dolby Vision HDR, and the DOL Clear HDR stands for Dolby Vision recording while also using the extended dynamic range. Now below that, I honestly don't know what these two things mean, so I won't even try, but moving further, we have various recording formats using the full resolution sensor, but that does not matter because Apple always shoots video in 16:9 format, which is actually at the bottom of the list. The first 16:9 12-bit 120 FPS option means that the sensor is actually capable of recording 8K resolution at 120 FPS, which I don't think Apple will even allow. And below that, we have Clear HDR at 60 FPS, so that's 8K 60 FPS with extended dynamic range enabled, which is gonna be the absolute game changer. And then finally, Dolby Vision extended dynamic range with 11-bit colors at 24 FPS, which will be the flagship 8K format. So basically, with all of that said and explained, the point that I'm trying to make is that the iPhone 14 Pro models will get a massive step up in terms of camera quality, destroying the other Android phones that currently already shoot 8K video, but they're limited to only 24 FPS and the quality is sometimes even worse than the iPhone's current 4K video quality. So if you're thinking about buying an iPhone 13 Pro right now, I would honestly hold off until the iPhone 14 Pro models are revealed, because I think this will be by far the biggest camera update we've ever seen on the iPhone. And with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one, and definitely check out one of those two right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.